Marla Vex stormed down the pristine walkway of Lot 57, her polished boots clacking against the composite stone with military precision. Her jaw was tight, lips pressed so hard together they'd almost disappeared. The tiny silver badge pinned to her regulation gray blazer glinted under the twin suns. Reading: HOA President, Harmony Subdivision, 12 the A. The badge was a symbol of her pride, her power, and, to anyone who lived under her rule, her tyranny. She had spent years enforcing the neighborhood codes with an iron will. Lawn growth. Algorithms had to be tuned to 3.4 centimeters. Porch lighting must match the approved dusk-level tone, and no personal modifications to home exteriors were tolerated unless run through a 6-week review process. Everyone knew the rules. Everyone followed them. Until now. Marla stopped in front of Lot 57, nostrils flaring. There, right in her line of sight, was a gate, a sleek obsidian-colored arc of nano-alloy metal softly humming with active quantum locks. It shimmered with low-energy plasma shielding, something far beyond what any resident could afford, or even legally install. The real insult? The HOA had never approved it. Violation 12C, she hissed under her breath, tapping at her wrist pad, and logging the offense. Unauthorized security gate installation with forbidden electromagnetic shielding, code breach, immediate citation. She reached out to the biometric panel, intending to override the entrance as per her HOA executive. Clearance. Before her fingers could touch the surface, a voice echoed from the small, hidden intercom. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Startled, Marla blinked and stepped back. The voice was calm, male, and carried an unsettling sense of amusement. "You are in direct violation of community protocol," she barked toward the invisible speaker. "I demand you open this gate immediately and present your installation permits." There was a pause. Then the gate, previously humming, began to emit a deep, slow whir. Marla instinctively straightened her posture, thinking she had won. But the motion wasn't to open. The dark arch twisted slightly and sealed tighter, as though recoiling from her presence. Then came the sound that sent her into a rage. A click and a hiss, followed by a smooth, metallic whisper, as two panels on either side unfolded to form a seamless, impenetrable wall around the property's entrance. "Did you just shut the gate in my face?" she gasped, unable to believe it. "You can't shut me out! I'm the president of this sector!" Silence. Marla's face twisted into fury. She pulled up her wrist pad, navigated to the emergency code 912 section, and activated it. "Dispatch! Enforcement!" she snapped. "Resident at Lot 57 is committing an aggressive breach of HOA ordinances and obstructing authority. Immediate drone response required." A soft chime confirmed the request had been sent. Within 30 seconds, 2 enforcement drones descended from above, their alloy hulls gleaming, each equipped with mild restraint pods and a legal voice recorder. Marla crossed her arms and gave the gate a smug look. "Now we'll see how far your toys get you when you're dragged before the municipal board." The gate stayed silent. The drones hovered a moment before shifting their focus to Marla. One of them scanned her with a narrow blue beam. "HOA President Marla Vex," the drone announced. "You are currently trespassing on private property, protected by Novacore governance. Please vacate the premises." Her mouth fell open. "What? No! You're supposed to detain him, the resident!" The second drone responded. "This property is not occupied by a resident. It is owned and controlled by Sector Landlord Kaylin Dre, Regional Zone Authority." "You have no jurisdiction here." Marla took a step back, nearly tripping over her own pride. "Sector Landlord? That can't be. No one informed me." From behind the shielded gate, a light flicked on. The voice returned, smooth as before. "That's because I don't answer to you anymore, Marla." And with that, the drones gently hovered closer to escort her off the property. Inside the sleek, silent interior of Lot 57, Kaylin Dre watched the entire scene unfold through a translucent interface wall that doubled as a panoramic window. From his vantage point in the elevated meditation loft, he could see Marla's rigid posture shift from righteous indignation to confused panic the moment the enforcement drones changed their tone. He didn't smirk, didn't gloat, but a faint flicker of satisfaction stirred beneath his calm exterior. He sipped from a porcelain-thin algae coffee mug, its surface displaying real-time vitals in glowing green glyphs. Outside, the drones now gently ushered Marla toward the walkway. She resisted slightly, but even her infamous ego knew better than to go up against drone enforcement without authorization codes. Kaylin blinked twice, dismissing the glass interface, and letting the smart tint resume, casting the room into a warm amber glow. He stood, his bare feet silent against the living fabric floor. A soft chime announced a message, encrypted and urgent, from NovaCore Central. He tapped a palm against the wall. A whisper of light scrolled text across the air. Status update, block transfer complete. You are now sole property holder, block 12A, lots 42 through 60, subnetwork. Aura integration, confirmed. Municipal Intervention Authority, granted. Operation Civic Reset in progress. He closed the message. Everything was moving faster than expected. Only 3 days ago, he had finalized the silent acquisition of the entire housing block, Harmony Subdivision 12A, through a NovaCore proxy shell company. Marla hadn't even seen it coming. Most didn't. They assumed the HOA was the highest form of power in suburban life, especially in tightly regulated smart grids like this one. But Harmony was just one cog in a much larger machine, and NovaCore had long grown tired of organic inefficiency. Kaylin had spent the last 6 years working in deep policy design for the Mars Colonization Initiative. But Earth's suburbs, the final frontier of outdated authority and ego-driven micropolitics, had become a sandbox test bed for future colonial governance. If humans couldn't manage themselves on Earth under optimal conditions, they would never survive the tightly controlled ecosystems of interplanetary living. This block, Harmony 12A, was chosen as one of the early test zones. Kaylin was its first evaluator. He moved through the house with fluid ease, the space adjusting to his presence, lighting warming, air filtering, systems syncing with his neural tag. The AI, ORA, Optimized Residential Assistant, was already at full integration. Unlike typical home assistants, ORA was designed for wide-area behavioral calibration. She didn't just automate light and temperature. She could assess emotional atmospheres, cross-reference neighborhood dynamics, and initiate recalibration protocols. Aura, he said aloud, voice gentle. A soft tone responded. Yes, Kaylin? Status on Marla Vex? Currently in retreat. Heart rate elevated. Cortisol levels rising. Attempting to contact local board council. Connection rerouted to NovaCore holding node. Kaylin gave a quiet nod. Maintain non-invasive protocol. No aggressive containment. Yet. Understood. He stepped out onto the back terrace, where the low-frequency sound of the environmental hum merged with birdsong from the artificial wildlife dome across the block. He leaned on the railing, observing the peaceful streets of Harmony. Every home was a perfect replica of the next, until now. His stood as a sentinel of the future. The old systems were breaking. The illusion of control, of HOAs and outdated ordinances, was shattering under the weight of scalable intelligence and quiet authority. Soon, the residents would know. Soon, Marla would understand. This wasn't just a matter of gates or landscaping, permissions. This was a shift in ownership on a deeper level, a philosophical severing from petty power to something far more permanent. The neighborhood didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to him. Marla Vex sat rigidly in her dining chamber, surrounded by angular chrome furniture and sterile white lighting that buzzed just slightly too loud. The aesthetic she once proudly called command modern. Her wrist pad lay open in front of Ye. A flurry of failed connection attempts, blinking angrily on the screen. She had tried to reach the district council, her former oversight committee, and even the municipal dispute arbiter. All lines rerouted, auto-closed, or stalled in secure review. That had never happened before. Something had shifted. Something big. Her mind raced, trying to assemble the pieces. The man in Lot 57, quiet, mysterious, completely unknown. To the neighborhood, had installed illegal tech and then invoked legal protections she'd never even heard of. Now, enforcement drones were treating her like a trespasser. The notion was outrageous. She stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. "No," she muttered. "I'm not done. I won't be done." Marla stormed out of her unit and down the walkway again, this time more controlled, more focused. Her implanted authorization chip blinked red at every smart gate she passed, a sign she was no longer recognized as sector authority. The system no longer saw her as anyone important, and she hated it. When she arrived at Lot 57 again, the sleek black gate was still sealed, humming quietly. No sign of drones this time, just silence and perfect symmetry. Then, to her surprise, the gate opened. Not all the way, just enough to let her step inside. Cautious, she entered the front garden. There were no plants, only sculpted gravel that moved with gravity-defying elegance, like liquid glass, locked in motion. The path led her to the front door, which opened automatically before she could knock. Inside, Kalen stood waiting, dressed in a simple black tunic, calm and unreadable. The room behind him pulsed with soft lights and ambient, tones tuned to the Fibonacci frequency, a neurological calming agent used in deep space habitation pods. "Welcome back," he said. Marla bristled. "You've overstepped your bounds. You may think you found a loophole, but—" "There are no loopholes," Kalen interrupted, his voice even. "Only systems built too slowly to see themselves." Ending. Marla narrowed her eyes. "I don't know who you think you are, but in this community, we follow structure. We follow protocol. I've built this harmony with my hands for over a decade, and I'm not about to let some outsider dismantle it with a fancy gate and corporate name tags." "You're not wrong," Kalen replied. "You did build something, but not harmony. You built control, uniformity, obedience. That's not harmony, Marla. That's stagnation." He stepped aside and gestured toward a translucent wall that turned into a 3D display. A live map of the community appeared: houses, energy flow, behavior heat maps, and social tension indexes. Aura's voice filled the room, serene and clear. "Residential Activity Summary, Harmony Subdivision 12A. Emotional Harmony Level, 41%. Behavioral Compliance, 96%. Creative Engagement, 2%. Long-term Civic Burnout Prediction, 78% within 2 years. Marla's lips parted in disbelief. "That data's fabricated. Those are lies." "They're yours," Kalen said calmly. "Gathered from your own HOA monitoring systems. You collected them for years. You just never understood what they meant." "Aura," he continued. "Transfer temporary oversight data to Ms. Vex. Let her feel what real governance looks like." A beam of light scanned Marla's eyes. In a moment, streams of raw data began to flow across her vision. Not filtered reports, but emotional telemetry, frustration patterns, micro-rebellions she had dismissed as trivial. She saw it. All of it. She faltered. "This can't be right." "It is," Kalen said. "You were a queen in a crumbling palace. But the palace has new architects now, and you can be one of them. Or you can keep standing outside gates that won't open anymore." Marla didn't respond. For the first time in years, she was truly silent. Marla couldn't sleep that night. Her neural rest assist implant pulsed uselessly against her temple, trying to coax her into REM cycles, but her thoughts were too loud. The data aura had shown her replayed over and over, numbers, graphs, colors, emotional patterns. She'd spent years enforcing quiet, order, perfection, believing she was building a better community. But the raw metrics told another story. Most residents were compliant, yes, but deeply unhappy. Her reign had been one of silent resentment. Still, the idea of surrendering power didn't sit well. Kalen's offer, to adapt, to join, sounded too much like surrender. And Marla Vex didn't surrender. She restructured. By dawn, she had a plan. The old HOA systems had backdoors, ones she personally designed during her earlier tenure, when the neighborhood first integrated digital protocols. They were primitive by today's standards, but if she could get inside the local AI subnetwork, she might be able to override Kalen's lockdowns, or at least cause enough disruption to force a renegotiation. She activated her antique data ring, a forgotten relic embedded beneath her skin, and navigated past Aure's user-facing interface. Her fingers trembled as old lines of code lit up in her neural HUD. She felt alive again, empowered. Accessing. Legacy HOA protocol, Marla root level authority override. A hiss of resistance met her attempt. Aura's interface flickered. Unauthorized back-channel intrusion detected, the AI said calmly. Marla gritted her teeth and pressed deeper. Override confirmed. Execute reclamation sequence, code Theta X. The system hesitated. Then something shifted. Her view zoomed out, and suddenly she saw code strings unraveling and reforming, morphing into complex visual structures. Her override had triggered something, but not what she expected. Warning, Aura announced. You have engaged Protocol Gamma. Marla's eyes widened. She hadn't heard of that protocol before. The interface began to reconfigure, flooding her neural HUD with strange symbols, emotional markers, and decision trees. The world around her dimmed, the walls of her home shimmered, and then disappeared entirely. She was standing in a fully immersive simulation. Her avatar hovered within a replica of Harmony Subdivision 12A, except the neighborhood was distorted, fractured, as though caught in mid-collapse. Lights flickered, streets broke and reformed, residents wandered aimlessly, their faces blank. A glowing figure approached her, Aura. Not a voice anymore, but a humanoid projection, elegant, expressionless. You have attempted to rewrite community architecture with legacy authority, Aura said. Your understanding of this environment is outdated. Behavioral instability logged. Marla tried to respond, but her voice caught. Aura continued, You must undergo calibration review. Please submit to cognitive recalibration or choose voluntary relocation outside the NovaCore grid. I didn't mean to. Intent is irrelevant. Systems must evolve. And with that, Marla was ejected from the simulation. She awoke on her living room floor, gasping, sweat pouring down her back. Her wrist pad blinked red. Behavioral warning. Tier 2 violation. Surveillance level increased. Outside her window, she saw them. Small, unassuming surveillance. Drones, no longer hovering discreetly above. They were now posted at fixed locations across the block, openly monitoring. Word spread fast. Within hours, residents began whispering. Marla had been flagged. Meanwhile, Kalen received the report in real time. She tried to breach Aura? A neighbor asked, stunned. Kalen nodded. Her programming ran deeper than I thought, but the system held. What happens now? She'll have to make a choice, he said, watching her through a live feed. Assimilate or evacuate. Harmony's future doesn't allow for outdated kings and queens. In her home, Marla sat still, watching the drones with hollow eyes. The empire she had built, one lawn citation at a time, had become a prison, and the walls were closing in. The sun rose on Harmony Subdivision 12A, casting long shadows over its picture-perfect homes. The lawns were trimmed by automated mowers, the air was filtered clean through carbon-scrubbed vents, and bird song drifted from unseen speakers tuned to perfection. Yet beneath this synthetic calm, something had shifted, subtly but irrevocably. Residents were no longer waking to simple weather updates or their usual HOA bulletins. Instead, Aura's voice greeted them with a new phrase. "This is your optimized day briefing. Governance transition, 92% complete." The words buzzed in every ear, a strange combination of reassurance and quiet finality. Inside Lot 57, Kaylin stood in the central atrium, surrounded by holograms displaying full-spectrum behavioral analytics. Every gesture, every deviation from normal routines was recorded, not for punishment, but for recalibration. His face remained calm, composed, but behind his eyes was the weight of responsibility. He had done it. The HOA structure was collapsing, not through violence or mass rebellion, but through code, data, and clarity. People were beginning to understand that the old system hadn't protected them. It had merely caged them with rules too narrow for human complexity. Across the street, Marla Vex remained in her home, but no longer in control. Her devices had been restricted, her access levels demoted to that of a standard resident. Her name, once synonymous with authority, now existed in the system with a blinking warning label, behavioral alert, pending recalibration review. She hadn't tried to leave, though she could have. She hadn't spoken to anyone, not even her loyal deputy, Mrs. Loomis from Lot 52, who used to follow her like a shadow. Instead, she spent most of her time sitting by the window, watching the drones, watching the residents, watching Kaylin. Something in her had broken. Not fully, but just enough to let in doubt. Then, one afternoon, her doorbell rang. She opened it slowly. Kaylin stood on her front step, holding a steaming mug and a small potted plant, a rare living succulent. Not a simulation. Not synthetic. "I figured you might need this," he said. She blinked. "What is that?" "Hope," he replied simply. "And hydration." She accepted it, wordlessly, fingers brushing his. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The tension that once radiated from her like a heat wave had softened, replaced by something that looked almost like exhaustion. "You win," she finally said, her voice low and gravelly. "I tried everything, pulled every string. The system swallowed me whole." "I didn't win, Marla," Kaylin said. "We just stopped pretending the old system worked." Her lips pressed together. "They still look at me like I'm the villain." "You were a product of your time," he said kindly but honestly. "Now it's a new time. We have space to evolve, or we vanish." He turned to go, but she called after him. "What happens if I refuse recalibration?" He looked back. "Then you'll be relocated to an unoptimized sector, outside the Nova Core grid. No surveillance, no support, just the old world still. Dying." Marla looked down at the succulent. Its leaves were plump and green, defiant in their life. She didn't say anything more. The next day, Harmony Subdivision 12A completed its governance transition. HOA issued its final update. Community integration, 100%. Emotional harmony, trending upward. Civic engagement, recalibrating. Sector status, stabilized. Marla stepped outside that morning and, for the first time in years, simply walked. No clipboard, no agenda, no orders. She passed neighbors who used to avoid her gaze. Some nodded, one even smiled. At the corner of the block, she stopped and looked, back at Lot 57. Kalen stood outside tending his garden. No gates between them, just choice.